Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Tiffany, a retired librarian turned homeschool mom. And in this video we're going to be talking about the film adaptation of I Dreamed of Africa by Cookie Goldman. So that's her autobiography. This is the film adaptation with Kim Basinger of that book, also called I Dreamed of Africa. So this was my first introduction to this story. In fact, probably my first introduction to understanding Kenya as a country. So this is a fantastic film. It obviously, her autobiography stretches between probably slightly before 1972, which is when she moves to Africa, and into, I think, 1989. The film does a little bit of the very, very beginning of kind of her listening to her father's stories, briefly mentions her first husband, and then kind of goes into a little bit of her relationship with her son, Emmanuel, and then right into the car accident where she interacts with Paolo and ends up in the hospital. And then it literally almost, you get the kind of the beginnings of her relationship with him, and his relationship with Emma, or Emmanuel, which is Emma is what they call her son. His full name is Emmanuel. And then almost they cut out his daughters completely. If you saw my book review, he has two daughters who were older. They were like middle school, high school age, I think, if I remember from the book, at the time this happens, and their mother dies. But they cut out them completely. They really cut out them vacationing in Kenya, and they just go straight to her and Paolo getting married and them moving to Kenya. They go straight to that. And then them eventually searching for a place to live, and then finding Olaninero Ranch, which is where they actually shot, which is the real place where most of the story takes place. And then it kind of goes through Kuki having to learn Swahili, Paolo leaving her, not digitally, he physically leaves and goes off hunting and exploring, and she's stuck running this cattle ranch and learning Swahili by herself. And she does get mad at him. I mean, she's not in damsel distress here. He yells, they do show in the film, and them fighting. He's like, this is kind of the way things are here. So she having to basically run this mostly by herself. They do catch over the fact that she actually has to learn English as well, because she's Italian. She has to learn English because that's the main language of Kenya besides Swahili. So most of the white people speak English. In fact, a lot of the people who are Kenyan, the African Kenyans, speak English. They also speak Swahili, so she has to learn both. And she's running the ranch. It kind of goes through her relationship with having Emma having to go to boarding school, because that's just kind of the way things have to be. He can't be educated. They're in the middle of nowhere in northern Kenya near the Great Rift Valley, so he's off at school having to go to an English school, her kind of separation, and then watching him grow up. And it's like all of a sudden he's becoming a young man. And then goes into Paolo convincing her to have a baby, because he wants to leave something of himself behind, and he's believing that he's going to die, which he does. And him putting this ostrich egg hanging above their bed, which is eventually filled with things. And yes, that's true as well. That's directly from the book. And then goes into his death and his funeral. And her mother is trying to convince her, it's like, why don't you take Emmanuel and the baby? Because they also go into the birth of Savea, a little bit of, that's her daughter. Yes, the person exists, who's now probably my age, if not slightly older. And what they don't go into, I forgot to mention in my book review, is a lot of the African people that she knew that were part of her community believe that Savea is a reincarnation of her father. It's just, she had a variety of names. So it kind of goes into a little bit of Savea's kind of growing up, her relationship. She's very young. She doesn't get, the film stops before Savea reaches more than like maybe 5 or 6. So as opposed to the book, which goes into, I think she's like 12, because the book ends in 89. The film ends slightly before that. It then goes into Emmanuel's death. He milks venomous snakes. He's always been obsessed with snakes. The film shows that, the book shows that. But normally Paolo says don't mess with the poisonous ones, but he's trying to help people. That's why he's milking their venom. He gets bit the night before they had a huge party. He's gotten into Stanford. He's going off to college. He's 17, but he gets bit by a snake. They're too far away from help, and he dies in her arms. And it's like, you died knowing you were dying, and you were not afraid. You were 17 years old. And yes, that chokes me up, because this she loses her son, and it goes through his funeral. At this time, her mother again is still alive, but her mother knows better than to ask her. It's like, no, she's she's staying there, and this is her home. She is now, I think, she's been a Kenyan citizen for some time. So in real life. So it goes through Emmanuel's death, and then it goes through where they end up releasing a bunch of snakes, and that is true of the story. And then that's slowly where the film ends. Is she comes back, and you kind of have a backing up of the film shot where you have this voiceover pretty much saying they came to Africa, and Africa claimed an extraordinary price, and now it is their job to protect Africa herself, which is very much almost the mindset of Kuki Goldman herself. The ranch is now the Lapika Conservatory. It's basically it's private protected land. She still owns it, but she's using it to protect wildlife. The film does kind of do mention that she creates the Goldman Memorial Foundation, which is there to support a bunch of things, protecting the land, protecting the wildlife, protecting the people and their culture. And they do a bunch of things to help with the native people and keep the land safe and do research. And that is essentially her goal. That's what they are doing on the land now. So she's very much, both her and her daughter are involved in essentially stopping poaching, protecting the wildlife, preserving the culture and the wildness of Africa as it is, and very much into saving the earth and protecting our wild spaces. So, and that the film captures that quite well. It captures her life in a short span. Obviously, they cut out a bunch of stuff. They cut out Paolo's daughter. They cut out Mario marrying Paolo's youngest daughter, and a whole bunch of other people and a variety of different things. But again, the film stretches between a whole lifetime. I mean, the book ends in 89, I believe, when Savea's, from the pictures, she looks about 12, 13, when, with some of the last pictures in the book. In the film, she's probably maybe 4 or 5. So she's still really little. Essentially, it ends shortly after Emmanuel's death. Why the book goes on further, which kind of, it kind of explains that you see some other stuff. I highly recommend the book. I reviewed that, so check that out. The film is very, very good. I wouldn't age range on this. Late middle school, maybe. At the earliest, at the youngest. You have 2 major deaths. You have a car accident at the very beginning, plus the husband, Paolo, and Emmanuel die. It can be very, very intense. There's shooting, there's some violence here with nature and against nature and stuff like that, and poaching problems. So late middle school, maybe. I'd say not late elementary, maybe. More middle school, high school is really one you want to do. This is a book great if you're studying Kenya and Africa in general, because it shows a lot of the wildlife and kind of the effects of different things going on. The book is even better for that, because it chronicles this. She does have a second book that I have not read. Maybe I'll review it at some point if I ever get a chance to read it. So that covers a little bit more of her life. But this film is great if you're studying that kind of thing. And it is filmed on location at Olaninero, at her home. It does it again. They're filming, she's allowing them to film on her private property. That's the other thing to remember. The ranch and what is now called the Lapika's Conservatory is still private land. she's never sold it. It's not part of like belonging to the country of Kenya. No, this is private land used for conservation and very much protecting the wildlife and a variety of other things. I think in a certain area, they have a hospital they're trying to promote and support the other native people who are living on this land. So, so this, again, the film is very, very good. It shortens a lot of things. I first saw this film probably on HBO when I was in probably high school, maybe. It inspired it was one of the films that kind of pushed me really wanting to join the US Peace Corps, even though I ended in Romania. I'll do maybe one of these days I'll do a story time video on that. I do not regret my Peace Corps tour. I do regret how young and how naive I was. I was in my mid-20s, but I was still very, very young and very naive. I was not trained very well. And I was probably not mature enough to be doing what I was doing, and I stumbled quite a bit. I do not hide that. I completed my tour. I'm proud of it. But I was too young and too naive and too unprepared and badly trained to be doing what I was doing. And then I was dealing with an unusual situation with the country. So I was also the last Peace Corps volunteer to be in my city where I was at that had once been full of Peace Corps volunteers. And then the country closed a couple of years later because I left. Peace Corps left Romania in 2013. I left. My tour finished in 2011. So pretty much 11. Would have been 11 years ago, a couple of weeks ago. So because I arrived home right before the 4th of July. So back to this. What else this film does is I desperately want to see Kenya. So it is on our bucket list. It's one of the things, a place we eventually hope to visit once my child and hopefully a second child are much, much older. Because I don't think it's easier once they can walk and talk and experience things a little bit more. So fantastic film. Late elementary, middle at the youngest, middle school, high school would do this. No, as much as this cover loves to show there's a love story, there's a bit of a love story here, but it is very much more of a love letter to Africa and Kenya in specific. So if you're looking for a film to kind of look at the reactions of basically one of this woman, particularly Cookie Goldman is a real person, all of the events, I don't think this book is dramatized, the film is dramatized too much. Most of the events happened. They cut out a lot. Definitely read the book. Always read the book. Again, with the book, it's an autobiography. So middle school, high school. Middle school would be the youngest I would read that book. So I don't care about your kids' reading level. That's not the reason I say this. There are certain things that go on in that book that are just not age appropriate, in my opinion, for younger children. They're not going to get as much out of it. So again, middle school. Same with the film. It's a great film, particularly if you're looking at the scenery of Africa and how white ranch owners essentially interact with the natives and how they did this and how they worked with them in the water rights and things like that and protecting the land from poachers. It's a beautiful, beautiful story. I highly recommend the film. I highly recommend the book. But that is it for this review. Check out the rest of my stuff. I cover a mixture of book reviews, film reviews. I do adaptations a lot just because that's something that I enjoy, looking at books and kind of the films that came off them. This is one of the better adaptations. It really is compared to some of the other stuff that I will cover or have covered as well. So if you like what you see, one, check out the book review, and two, check out the rest of my channel. I have a variety of children's books, various different films, some homeschooling legal stuff, some other homeschooling reviews, educational resources, a little bit of travel stuff. Hopefully we'll be adding more travel stuff and a whole bunch more planned. So like and subscribe and see what I've got. Thank you.